In this drawing, I'm going to demonstrate the principles of casual perspective: size, overlapping, placement, atmospheric perspective, value, and detail. Since it is a graphite drawing, I won't show color. Now I'm starting with a couple little thumbnail sketches just to help plan out my drawing first before I start the actual one. And I found that I actually like the vertical composition better. And so I just kind of really quickly did that tiny little sketch just to kind of plan out what I want to do on my piece of paper. And then I'll go ahead and get started drawing here. So I'm using all those techniques of starting with basic shapes or basic 3D forms. I'm using sighting and measuring because I have my little Italian mocha maker sitting right in front of me. So you'll see me pick up my pencil every once in a while and make a quick measurement to get the sizes correct, or I might be measuring the angles on this object. So I start really lightly, just kind of sketching it in. I'll start with kind of the big basic general shapes first, and then I'll start working to detail. In this drawing, I'm going to just repeat the same object multiple times, and that way it's going to make those principles of casual perspective very obvious rather than having a bunch of different objects in there, although you could certainly set up a still life with a bunch of different objects and still demonstrate these. Since I have the object set up and I'm going to keep moving it into different positions, in this particular case, I'm going to end up basically kind of refining this first mocha maker first and get all the kind of highlights and shadows on it, or kind of roughly sketch those in before I move on to the next one. Usually I would sketch, if I was doing a still life, I would sketch everything out first and then go back and add details. On the second mocha maker that is going to be slightly farther away, I went ahead and made it a little bit higher on the page. So the bottom of that object has to be slightly higher on the ground plane than the object that's supposed to be closer. It's also ever so slightly smaller. So the base there, although we're seeing it from a different angle, it is a little bit smaller than the close one here. In addition to size and placement on the page, I'm also going to decrease the amount of detail as the mocha makers get farther back into space. So on these front ones, I'm adding a lot more detail. I'm adding more information about the values. I'm adding like some of the little details, like the little Bialetti gentle Italian guy on the front there. I'm getting a little bit more of the kind of intricate planes that happen on that mocha maker, whereas the ones farther in the back, I'm not going to get as detailed with all those little tiny minor planes. On this third mocha maker that I'm doing, I'm using some overlapping. So the closest one overlaps this third one that I'm doing to create that sense of perspective and depth. I'm also just starting to sketch lighter. So I'm making all the values get slightly lighter as they go back into space, and that helps create a sense of perspective. I'll also decrease the contrast in values as it goes back in space. So whereas on the front mocha maker, I might have really dark blacks and really light whites. In the distance, I might just have one gray color that I kind of put in for the darks. And I really decrease all that contrast and pop to those ones farther in the distance. So on this last one that I'm doing, I'm also reducing detail. There's a little bit of overlap there, so it looks like it's behind the third one. It's the highest one on the page. At the end here, I'm just going through and kind of refining things. So you could make this as a refined drawing as you want. I personally kind of like the sketchiness quality to this one, especially since it's just an exercise in practice. But I am on the front one going back and just kind of refining and cleaning up edges too, because on that front one, I want a little bit sharper, crisper edges